This is Co-Whetstone's Arkansas Gray. If you've been following my channel, you know that I recently received this stone as a gift from a friend of mine. And I've been working on the stone, working with the stone, trying to understand it, see what it would do, that kind of thing. And so I have some preliminary thoughts on this stone. I've already gone through one round of testing with I took 3 different razors and did 3 different types of procedures on them. Let's look at, first of all, lapping this stone. It was recommended to me by Jonathan Coe, the seller of this stone, as well as a couple of other people's, to lap this stone with sick powder and go from 60 grit. Jonathan says go to 60 grit all the way through the progression to about 600 grit, and he said that he had found that the stone produced too much stiction past 600 grit for you to go much past that. That was not my experience with this stone, and I've talked to others that have taken it further than 600 as well with no problems. But you know, my little group of people that I talk to isn't anywhere near probably the group of people that Jonathan had feedback on this stone from, so take that for what it's worth. But what I did, usually what I do is I reserve sick powder for things like Arkansas stones, carborundum stones, silicon carbide stones that are really, really hard and don't lap very well any other way. And so I got to thinking about this stone, and the composition is limestone and silica. And in my opinion, a diamond stone should lap that just fine, and it did. I lapped this with a 400 grit diamond stone, and I got a really nice, smooth, clean finish off of it. It was a bit harder to lap than, say, my JNat, and about twice as hard to lap as a synthetic stone. And that's just a guess, but that's where I would put it. But it lapped perfectly fine. And then what I did was I have a combination stone of 400 grit on one side and 1,000 grit on the other side of the diamond plate. Excuse me, I'm hiccuping. But I just flipped that diamond plate over to the 1,000 grit side and polished this up to 1,000 grit. And that's where I keep it. And that's where it's performing well for me at. Now, the slurry stone. I mentioned this slurry stone in my in my introductory video, and I made the statement that, you know, that's an awful big slurry stone. You really didn't need that big of a slurry stone. And Jonathan talked to me after that video. I sent him a link to the video and said, you know, take a look at this. What do you think? Did I get, you know, the characteristics of your stone right and stuff like that? Was the information I gave correct and all that? And he said, yeah, but he said the reason that he gives such a large slurry stone is so that I could use this stone to keep this level when I'm slurrying, instead of having to go back and lap it with a lapping plate all the time. Now, that's a very old school way of lapping stones. Before we had diamond plates and stuff like that, honers would take 2 rocks and rub them together till they were both flattened out and their mating surfaces met. And that's how they flattened stones back then, unless they wanted to take it out and grind it on the sidewalk or something like that. So that's an old school way of doing things, and something that I didn't think of. And so there's an answer to the size of the slurry stone. When we're talking about slurry, I want to talk a bit about using slurry on this stone. First of all, using the lapping stone, the slurry stone, this is slow to slurry, but it does slurry well with this stone. It just takes a bit. I used both the slurry off of the stone itself, and my favorite use is the 1K lapping plate. Take the 1K lapping plate and use it to raise slurry, and that's what I prefer between the two, but I'm still playing around. So, but when we talk about using slurry with this stone, I had a friend of mine suggest that I go to 8K on the razor and then create a slurry and slurry this stone and hone on a slurry until I was finished. And what I've found with most slurries, regardless of what you are using on them, you know, whether we're talking about this stone or a conical or anything else, is that if you go to 8K on a finishing stone and then move to a slurry, your edge is going to go back from that 8K. Now you can spend the time on that slurry on some stones, like a JNAT or a conical. You can spend enough time on that slurry to where you can bring that edge back up. But to me, it's a waste of time to go to an 8K synthetic stone and then move to a slurry. I would much rather go to a 4K stone or a 5K stone or a 3K stone, or if the stone that I'm using is capable of finishing like that, off a 1K, like my Shobodani. And so the test that I made, first of all, this is a really fast cutting stone. In my opinion, for a finisher, this is a fast cutting finisher. But it finishes fine. And the thing of it is that was what prompted me to try the first test that I did. And what I did was I honed a razor to 8K and then did about 30 laps on this stone on water, or sometimes I would use soap and water, a soapy water kind of solution. I didn't see a lot of difference between the two, to tell you the truth. But coming off an 8K and going to this stone and doing about 30 passes, I get a fabulous shave off of that. So to me, this can be a lot like the synthetic 12K. You know, you come off an 8K or a 10K and you go to that 12K, that 9/12, and you do 20, 30 laps and strop and you're done and you get a fantastic shave. So in my opinion, for a natural finisher, this rivals that in ability, because I can take this stone and come off of an 8K and do about 30 laps on water or on soapy water. Some people use oil with these, but I prefer to use water or soapy water or something water-based. But I can come off of my 8K and go to this, do about 30 laps, and strop, and boom, I'm done. And I get a great shave off of it. As a matter of fact, in my opinion so far, now I have a second round of tests coming up after this video airs, where I'll shave these edges that I'm fixing to talk about. One of them is the 8K and 30 laps on this stone. I'll reshave that again. But on the last shave test, that was the best shave I got off of any of the razors that I tried on this, was that just 30 passes on clear water. That was clear water. It wasn't the soapy water. This time I used the soapy water when I did this test. But fantastic edge. Beautiful, smooth, lovely edge. No problems whatsoever with that. And then what I did was, instead of going to 8K, because I tried to go into 8K and my friend said try it, so I tried it. I tried going off the 8K and moving to slurry, and the HHT was terrible. It was like violin, you know how you cut the hair, but it doesn't cleanly cut, and it still hangs onto the piece of the hair that you've got in your hand, that kind of deal. That's all the HHT I could get off of that, and for me, that's not a good approach. If it works for you, fine, but in my estimation, running to slurry off an 8K is a waste of a perfectly refined 8K edge. So what I did was I went back down to 4K and then went to this stone with a slurry and honed on it until the slurry darkened well, and then honed a little bit more like that, and then began to dilute the edge with water until I came to almost clear, and then I wiped this stone off and finished on clear water. Wonderful HHT. I think it's going to be a really nice shave. It was a good shave in the last test, the last edge test video that I did. And the last thing I did, on the last video, I tried coming off of 8K and 30 laps on this, coming off of 4K and going to a slurry. And then what I did was I took that edge that I slurried from an 8K and didn't get very good results, and attempted to do a micro bevel on this stone. And the HHT was improved off of that, but in my opinion that was the worst feeling of the 3 edges that I tried. So this time around I chucked the micro bevel test, and what I did instead was I went to a 1K stone. I killed the edge on the razor, went to a 1K stone and restored the bevel at 1K level, used a diamond lapping plate and raised a slurry on this stone, and did the same thing I did from 4K. I honed on this stone until the slurry got a dark grayish bluish tint to it, and then I began to dilute that slurry a little at a time until I got really close to clear water. After that, I cleaned the stone off, cleaned the razor off, used a bit of soapy water, and then sprayed more water on top of that. The soapy water kind of helps the water adhere to the surface of the stone better. That's why I do that. And did about 30 laps on clear. Stropped, hanging hair test, fantastic looking edge. So we have 8K, 30 passes on this stone on clear water, 4K to a slurry until clear water, and then finish on clear, and then 1K done the same way. And that's what we will test in the next video. One other thing I would mention is a couple of users mentioned that they got microchips on their bevel with this stone. Now, I did too on a couple of occasions. Very small microchips on the bevel, but when I took that razor to a strop and properly stropped it, the micro chips disappeared, and the edge was nice and straight and clean and pristine. So in my opinion, if you can take a razor to a strop and strop it enough that those, just the standard stropping now, and those microchips disappear, then it's a non-issue. So, but none of my bevels have any chips in them after they come off of the strop. So, but I think this is a really versatile stone. I think it can be a pure finisher, or I think you can use it like a cuticle or a J-Nat, come off a 1K or a 4K, and go to finish on it. Either way, I think it performs really well. We're going to do a shave test on this, and I will give you my final thoughts, and then I'll do a honing video. I'll probably do a honing video coming from 4K and through a slurry method, just because it's more fun, and I'll have a little bit more time to hone on the stone and let you see what's going on with it. Alright, God bless you, and thanks for watching. I'll talk to you later.